Welcome to episode number 4 of the Jackrabbit Sports Hour. Be released a day later this year, or this week rather, as just some scheduling conflicts, but we're ready to get show number 4 underway with Austin Sanger. I'm Brent Bowen. Austin, welcome back this week.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back, feeling a lot better.
So this week on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, we will be recapping last week's loss for South Dakota State football up in Fargo against North Dakota State. A great game that was. Biden upending the Jackrabbits. We'll recap volleyball. They've had 3 matches since our last show, including a couple of matches on the road, and then a thrilling match at home against South Dakota a couple of days ago. Jacks stay unbeaten. We'll also recap soccer, a loss against Denver in soccer now. We'll have minimal chances at gaining a top 2 seed in the Summit League. All that and more throughout the next hour. We'll also preview this upcoming weekend in Jackrabbit Athletics, a big one with football and volleyball both having a couple of big matches. Basketball's coming up. We'll preview that as well, and then we'll get you our hottest takes from the national sports scene. That's all coming up throughout the next hour here on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour on KSTJ 90.7. Welcome back, Jackrabbit Sports Hour here on KSTJ 90.7. Brent Bowen and Austin Sanger recapping last week what happened. Some highs, some lows. Starting out with a low. Jackrabbit football team, a 13-9 loss at North Dakota State last Saturday up in Fargo. It was a raucous crowd at the Fargo Dome, attendance 18,807. Fans didn't have much to cheer about until quarter number 4. It was a defensive battle. The Jacks led 9-7 going into the fourth, but the Bison took the lead in the final minutes, went up 13-9. The Jacks couldn't drive down the field on a 2-minute conversion. But with this low-scoring game, there weren't very many highlights offensively, but there was one play in particular.
Yeah, there was one big offensive play in that game, and that was Chase Mason's 66-yard run to the house.
Capped off a 3-play, 75-yard drive. Mason's been electric in the run game this season, and that touchdown run was right after the Bison completed a 13-play, 69-yard drive to take a 7-0 lead. The extra point, though, after the Mason touchdown run was blocked, that turned out to be a pivotal play in the game, as the Jacks only led 9-7 for the entire second half after Dustman drilled a 42-yard field goal to end the first half. It was a 9-7 game all the way until the 2-minute timeout of the fourth quarter, and then afterwards Cam Miller connected with Rajah Nelson 20 yards for their second connection of the day. The Bison then went for 2, didn't get it, and led just 13-9, but the Jackrabbit special teams unit left 4 points out there on the board with the extra point that was blocked, and then Dustman missing a 53-yard field goal. Not that you're necessarily going to criticize a college kicker for missing a 53-yard field goal, but just due to the situation, it was 4th and 1 for the Jacks on the 31-yard line. The Jacks go for it, sneak it, and get it with Chase Mason, but it's called back due to a slight false start penalty on Quentin Christensen, the left tackle. It was actually called on Chase Mason, the quarterback, which was not right at all. I mean, that's another story that I'm going to touch on here in just a moment, is that the officiating was not good in that game. It was a false start, but it was on Christensen and not Mason, like the officials had called. And it gets bumped back to 4th and 6. Dustman tries a 53-yard field goal, goes off the left upright. Obviously, it didn't mean anything. The Bison didn't turn it into any points, but it would have been nice for the Jackrabbits to continue that opening drive. And if you can punch that in for a touchdown, and the offense was rolling on that opening drive, if they can finish that drive with a TD, that game just could have taken a completely different turn. Instead, it turns into a low-scoring game. The first points aren't scored until the 6-minute mark of the second quarter. So if we want to break this game down even further, there was a lot of criticism on social media for how Mark Gronowski played in this game. Gronowski 17 for 29, 118, 1 interception. That 1 interception came on the game-ending drive as Gronowski tried to fit a ball into a tight window to Griffin Wilde, linebacker for North Dakota State, makes a great play. What I dislike most about what Jackrabbit fans are criticizing Mark Gronowski for. I mean, did Gronowski play his best football? No, he didn't. However, what Mark Gronowski has done for this program, he's taken them to 3 national championship games, won them 2 national championships back-to-back. And now people are out here saying that he's terrible and that he doesn't deserve to run this offense anymore. My God, you guys would be acting like that he has been a mediocre quarterback and has produced mediocre results ever since he stepped foot on campus, which is simply not true. And if you watched this game and how it panned out, the Bison were playing 2 deep safeties all game. There was really no opportunities for Gronowski to take shots down the field. Yes, he missed Stoffel in the back corner of the end zone one time. That's definitely a throw Gronowski would like to have back. But also at the same time, Gronowski made a big-time play in the fourth quarter connecting with Graham Goring on the 2-yard line. Looks like Goring catches it. They call incomplete. Somehow it doesn't get reviewed. If that gets reviewed, not saying it would have been a catch, but I think that's a play that should have been reviewed for an opportunity to be overturned. But instead, it doesn't get reviewed, and Jacks have to punt, and the Bison go 93 yards to end it. That's a big-time play that Gronowski made, and it looked like it could have been a catch, but instead, there's no opportunity. So I think Gronowski throughout the game, just taking what the defense gave him. And you got to give credit to North Dakota State up front, especially. That D-line was phenomenal. You would think with North Dakota State playing 2 deep safeties all game, the Jackrabbit run game would have been open, but it really wasn't. Amar Johnson, 13 carries, 41 yards. Angel Johnson, 5 carries, 17 yards. Voorhees was banged up. They didn't really get him involved in the offense. The quarterback run game was there. The QBs combined for 157 yards and 18 carries. So the Jacks 215 rushing yards, but the Bison D-line held the Jackrabbit RBs in check, and as a result, the offense just came up short today. A lot of criticism towards Ryan Olsen as well, the Jackrabbit OC, but I mean again, the just maybe lack of execution on the offensive end up front. Gronowski maybe missing a couple of throws as well. The running back's not hitting a couple of holes. But I mean, overall, there's really it's disappointing to see kind of the overreaction on social media following that game. But we'll preview this upcoming week against South Dakota tomorrow at 6:30 against ESPNU. Expect the team to bounce back in a big way, but we'll hit more on that later. So a tough loss for Jackrabbit football. They moved to 5-2 on the season, but still, they're the number 3 team in the country. They can bounce back and beat South Dakota and win every other game on their season. They'll be 10-2. Likely will be a top 4 seed. And we'll still have a solid chance to make a return to the national championship game. Still plenty of season to go. Move on to volleyball. Jackrabbit volleyball still undefeated. 2 wins last week at North Dakota State and at St. Thomas. Jacks an easy sweep over the Bison. It was a rocky first set, but the Jacks found a way to win. Things were easier in sets 2 and 3. Then, against St. Thomas on Saturday, the Jacks handled in business. 10 attack errors in the opening set. Those 10 attack errors led St. Thomas to a 25-16 set 1 win, but the Jacks would respond and win the next 3. And then, boy, we were treated to a phenomenal match Tuesday night against South Dakota. 5-set thrilling win over the Coyotes.
Yeah, what a game it was at First Bank and Trust Arena against USD. It was electric. Coming back in set 3 and almost winning that set, but ending up falling. Then, in set 4, doing another comeback, and Sylvie just took over in set 4, which won us that set, which led us to winning that game.
And the win on Tuesday for Jackrabbit volleyball over USD. That snapped an 18-game winning streak that the Coyotes had against the Jackrabbits, dating back to October 13th, 2015. 18 was that magic number coming into the day Tuesday. The Coyotes had 18 wins in a row over the Jackrabbits. The Jackrabbits were 18-0 on the season. The Jacks snap the 18-game streak of the Coyotes and move to 19-0. Sylvie Skunts was unbelievable on Tuesday night. 24 kills for Skunts on 60 attacks, really just putting the team on her back in sets 4 and set 5 as well. Skunts with back-to-back kills to end set 4. Truly a takeover performance, leading the yellow and blue to a victory over South Dakota. Jacks remain the only unbeaten team in Division I volleyball. On another note, Sydney Shetton, a Peak Performer of the Week for the 4th time this season. 2 offensive Peak Performances of the Week awards, and then she's the back-to-back Summit League Defensive Peak Performer of the Week. Also want to touch on Annalie Ventling Brown was phenomenal Tuesday night. Was the spark that the Jackrabbits needed, especially in that 4th set. 8 kills on 13 attacks, as well as 5 blocks for AVB. Crowd was phenomenal. at First Bank and Trust Arena, as you just mentioned. 2,224 was the attendance. And on Guntz's last kill in the fourth set, I mean, obviously it was the loudest moment at First Bank and Trust Arena so far. But I mean, obviously I haven't watched a ton of Jackrabbit volleyball way back in the days. I've only really followed it a ton since I've been here in 2022. But I'd have to think that's about the loudest moment and most electric moment we've ever seen for a Jackrabbit volleyball match. And the Jacks, it was just impressive the way they did it. They won the opening set, took advantage of some Coyote errors. The Coyotes, a negative hitting percentage in the opening set. But USD, a great response in sets 2 and 3. The Coyotes hit 444 with only 2 attack errors in set 2, won at 25-21. Then the Yotes had a quick start in set 3, but the Jacks came roaring back, but that comeback fell short. Coyotes win at 25-23. Then the Coyotes again, a lead in set 4. The Jacks come back and take a late lead, 20-16, but USD goes on a big run, and the Coyotes have match point twice. They're up 23-20 and 24-22. The Jacks rally. So what a win for the Jackrabbits Tuesday. They're still first place in the Summit League. They're a half game up from Omaha. They'll take on Denver tomorrow. Take on Denver tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock. First serve from First Bank and Trust Arena. We'll get a quick preview of that one next. And then Austin Jackrabbit Soccer, a tough loss last night out at Fishback Soccer Park.
It was a good game, but they ended up losing to Denver 2-1 with all the goals being scored in the second half.
The Pios got things started. It was Liv Moritz in the 65th minute, her 5th goal of the season, to put the Pios up 1-0. Then just a few moments later off a corner kick, Ava Great. What a time for her first career goal off a header. Just took a great angle and knocked it in. That evened the tally. Casey Manding tallied for the assists, but then Denver would have a response 5 minutes later in the 74th minute. Peyton Ivins of the Pios, her first career goal as well. That gave Denver the 2-1 lead. That would be the last score of the game. Really, Denver completely outplaying the Jacks in this one. Pioneers outshot the Jacks 22-8. It was the first time all year that South Dakota State was outshot. Jacks did have a 9-1 corner advantage, but again, when do they not have an advantage in corner? It was a very physical game. 24 combined fouls, 13 against Denver, 11 against South Dakota State. But the Pioneers they were the better team last night, and they showed it. As a result, Denver 4-1-2 in the league. South Dakota State 4-2-1. Take a quick look at the Summit League soccer standings as we head into the last week. Jacks right now sit in 3rd place. North Dakota State's in 1st at 5-1-1. Denver in 2nd at 4-1-2. The Jacks then in 3rd place at 4-2-1. Omaha in 4th, tied with Oral Roberts at 3-1-3 and 12 conference points. And South Dakota at 1-2-4 in 6th place. And then St. Thomas, North Dakota, Kansas City round out the standings. They are all eliminated from Summit League tournament contention. All 6 teams have their spots locked in. So a tough loss for SDSU soccer against Denver 2-1 on Thursday night. We'll look to bounce back this upcoming weekend. We'll preview that upcoming matchup next, as well as the Jackrabbit football game against South Dakota on national TV. Once again, chance to bounce back after a tough loss last week. We'll also preview Jackrabbit volleyball's match against the Pioneers tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Jacks looking to stay unbeaten and pick up win number 20. That's all coming up next here on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, KSTJ 90.7. Jackrabbit Sports Hour continues here on KSTJ 90.7. Austin Sanger and Brent Bowen alongside with you. Jackrabbit football, big one tomorrow night against South Dakota, prime time, national TV for the 2nd week in a row as the Jacks get set to host the Coyotes tomorrow night at 6:30.
This game seems like it's going to be a revenge game for the Jackrabbits against the Coyotes. Having a heartbreaking loss at NDSU, the Jacks are going to want to show that they're still the best team in the league, and they're going to want to come out and win against South Dakota.
This is a Coyote team, obviously, that's no joke. 4-0 in the conference, 6-1 overall, would be 7-1 if Portland State didn't cancel on them with the whooping cough back in September. So this Coyote team, a very good football team, but it's a Coyote team as well that's going to go out there. They're looking to make a statement. The whole country, including everybody in the Dakotas, thinks that, well, obviously not South Dakota fans, thinks that the Coyotes really play second fiddle to the Jackrabbits and the Bison. Obviously, the Coyotes made that statement last year, defeating North Dakota State up in Fargo. Kind of shocking the country a little bit. 24-19 over the Bison last September. But then the Coyotes would fall to the Jackrabbits by a lot in Vermillion. I believe 30-3 was the final in that game. Really, just no chance for USD. It was really a disastrous first quarter for the Jackrabbits in that game. And despite it being a disastrous first quarter, the Jacks were still only down 3-0. Just shows how good South Dakota State was a season ago. But South Dakota feels like they can come in here and they can compete in this game, and that if they can come into Brookings and they can defeat South Dakota State, that they're making a statement that they are among the elite in the FCS and not in that second tier like a lot of FCS football fans feel that they are. And then for South Dakota State, as you mentioned, an opportunity at a revenge game. You lose one rivalry game, you don't want to come back home and lose another rivalry game in front of a sold-out Dana J. Stadium tomorrow night, and what's going to be a blew out on the northeast side of the Brookings campus. Expect a very energized team, a team that really wants to get back out there and compete after falling in heartbreaking fashion last week against North Dakota State. Expect them to come out a little angry. They haven't lost an FCS game in 3 years since that USD Hail Mary. And I guess that's the last regular season game they've lost. They lost to Montana State in the playoffs later that season as well. But I expect a very energized group to come out tomorrow night, and they're going to want to bounce back and pick up a top 5 win on their home field. Move on to volleyball. Jackrabbit Volleyball will host Denver tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And after an incredible win Tuesday night in front of the home crowd, Jackrabbits will look to defeat the Pioneers for the second time this season. Jacks 4-24 all-time against Denver, but the Jacks beat DU in 4 sets back in late September. SDSU won the first 2 meetings of this series against Denver, and then Denver won, I believe it was 18 or 20 in a row, something like that. I think it was 18 before the Jackrabbits beat and upset the Pioneers in the Summit League tournament down in Vermillion in 2021. But then the Pioneers won several in a row against the Jackrabbits before SDSU ended a smaller streak against Denver in late September, a 4-set win over the Pios. So Jackrabbit Volleyball looking to move to 20-0. A couple more notes with the volleyball program. The receiving votes in the polls, receiving 13 votes. And then in the RPI, they're ranked 32nd. It's their highest in school history. Another interesting note, NCAA Volleyball, they released a little bracketology, their first of the year. Had the Jackrabbits as an 8 seed. You don't see that from a Summit League team, let alone South Dakota State. They're an 8 seed projected to play Northern Iowa in the first round down in Lincoln, Nebraska, and would play the Cornhuskers in round 2 with a win. What an opportunity and an experience that would be for Dan Georgalis and the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Obviously still plenty of season to go. And then another question that arises. Okay, I want to hear your opinion on this, Austin. If you're undefeated going into the Summit League tournament and you lose in the championship game, giving you just one loss on the season, do you deserve an at-large bid to make it to the NCAA tournament?
That is a tough question. But you go undefeated, you lose in the championship, I think there's a chance you do get a bid for the tournament.
I think on your side as well. The knock against the Jacks will be, well, they didn't really play anybody in the non-conference. True. Their best win in the non-conference was Toledo at the Jackrabbit Invite at the Pentagon. Idaho State, a good team as well. The University of Illinois Chicago, who the Jacks swept in Macomb, that's a good win as well. The problem is for the Jacks, they didn't beat any Power 5 opponents. They beat a couple of good mid-majors, but you look at Idaho State. Idaho State's 15-5 and 6-2 in the Big Sky. They very easily could make a run to the NCAA tournament. So Idaho State, a good team that they beat. Toledo, a good program as well. That the Jacks 1-5 in a thrilling game. Toledo 14-8 on the season, and they are 7-3 in the MAC, and the MAC obviously a decent volleyball conference. And then if you go look at UIC UIC's been a solid program in years past. This season they're 14-7, 6-3 in the Valley, and the Valley's always a good volleyball conference. So you've beaten several solid mid-major programs. Obviously no Power 5s, but they can't control that. And I thought it was actually decent scheduling for the Jackrabbits this season. They scheduled really tough last year. As a result, really just got beat up in the non-conference. That kind of carried over into conference play. But you give your girls an opportunity to go out there and win games, build that confidence and momentum. And we've seen that carry into league play. Also, Jackrabbit Volleyball defeated Eastern Illinois in the non-conference. Obviously doesn't mean much this year, but it's a Panther program that they won 28 games this season ago and made it to the tournament. Jackrabbits made it look easy against Eastern Illinois, sweeping them. Also, Jack swept Florida A&M to start the season. Obviously, Florida A&M not great, but as of right now, the Rattlers projected to make it to the NCAA tournament. So the Jacks defeated, if you look at it, really 4 tournament quality teams in the non-conference. That's got to mean something. And I mean, if you lose every match but one, especially if you would lose a 5-set thriller to a good Omaha or USD team that would clinch the automatic qualifier into the automatic bid into the tournament. I mean, that'd be what? You're 19-0 right now. You've got another 8 games. That'd be like 30-1. You're going to leave a 30-1 team out. We'll see. I don't know. There'll be another discussion to have later in the year. Hopefully we don't have to have that discussion. Hopefully the Jacks can just take care of business in the Summer League tournament. They've shown that they're the best team in the league. Look to prove it further. Jackrabbit Soccer will host Oral Roberts Sunday afternoon at 1. It's senior day for the yellow and blue. Jacks will walk several players to the senior day line that have made tremendous impacts on this program. It'll be a big one with Oral Roberts. If the Jacks win and Denver loses or ties, the Jacks will be the number 2 seed in the Summit League tournament. And then if the Jacks would tie or lose, it's likely the yellow and blue would fall down to the 4 or the 5. But really, the 4 or the 5 might be the spot to be. You know, I don't, watching Thursday night, don't think I'd want to be the 3. I think Denver's a much better team than North Dakota State. I mean, Denver proved it by beating NDSU. Denver just had one slip up against Oral Roberts, had a goofy tie against UND, and the Bison have only had 2 games this season that haven't resulted in a win. Denver has had 3, as well as South Dakota State. I think I'd much rather play North Dakota State in the semis than Denver. The Jacks outplayed the Bison last Thursday, 1-0 loss in Fargo. Just the Bison kind of getting a lucky bounce off a lucky second bounce that got knocked in for a goal was the one score of the game. I would like the Jacks' chances of beating North Dakota State if that match were to happen. And there's no guarantee the Jacks would have to go play Denver in the championship because Denver's gotten upset in the semis 3 years in a row. So we'll see how this thing plays out. We'll get a lot more clarity next week. But if the Jacks were to be a 3 or a 4 seed, they would host next Friday night, I believe, or maybe Saturday as well. Not sure yet. That time is to be determined. But the Jacks would host a matchup next week. Talk a little basketball here. Hard to believe that's already underway. The tip-off is next Wednesday, where the Jacks will have, each team will have an exhibition match. The women will host St. Cloud State Wednesday night at 6. The men will host Black Hill State Wednesday at 8:15, or just to follow that women's game. And then each team will tip off their season next Monday. The women down in Houston to play Rice, the men at the Pentagon to play a very talented McNeese State team. Austin, lots to be excited about the basketball teams this season, with the men making the tournament last season. Lots of turnover, but lots of talent on that team. And then that women's team, my goodness, they look stacked here in 2024.
I think the women's team is a team to beat already in Summit League play. How good they were last year with the injuries that they had and still winning the tournament and going to the NCAA and putting up a fight against
Utah,
yep. And adding the couple freshmen that they have, this team is scary to be playing, and I hope they make a run this year in the tournament.
Well, the Jacks back in 2019, a Sweet 16 appearance. They're going to look for some similar magic here in the 2024-25 season. I mean, you mentioned it. They got a lot back from last season's team that was just decimated by injuries. They still make it to the tournament as a 12 seed. You return almost all of your scoring production from last season. You get the player of the year back in Brooklyn Meyer, Paige Meyer back as well. Haley Timmer was one of the best players in the Summit League. She's back after suffering a season-ending injury before the season started last year. Veteran presence in Callie Tyson returns. Madison Mathewitz as well, great at the three-point line. Madison Veloston, rather, coming back from injury as well. Mesa Byam, that inside presence as well. Bringing a great freshman class, led by Katie Vazeka, South Dakota Gatorade Player of the Year, 6'2", 6'2" wing that can shoot, can really do a lot of things well. She could very well start from day one. I would assume play starting day one as well. Molly Abdouche, the Sioux Falls native and O'Gorman graduate, very electric player in her high school days, expecting to be a good player at the collegiate level as well. Then you bring in Claire Shepard, the Eagan native, Flander High School graduate, was a great high school player, another versatile, long, athletic wing, standing at 6 feet 1 inches tall. Then bring in a project player in Jaden Dunn, who has great athleticism, the freshman at Sioux Falls Jefferson, and she stands at 6'1". Stats didn't necessarily show in high school, but she's always shown a lot of potential. Aaron Johnston bringing her in, and if this Jackrabbit coaching staff can develop Dunn, she could turn into one heck of a player here in years to come. Not very likely, though, that Dunn makes an impact here in year one on the Jackrabbits. Didn't mention Jenna Hopp either, who was excellent last season as a versatile defender and a freshman. She comes back, the sophomore, out of Glenwood, Iowa. So the women's team will be the team to beat, as you mentioned, in the Summit League this season. We'll look to not only make a run in the Summit League, but in the NCAA tournament as well. Jackrabbit women's basketball scheduling very aggressive in the non-conference once again. But they get 3 big-time opponents coming into First Bank and Trust Arena this season. Creighton in the opener on Friday, November 8th. Then Wisconsin on November 13th. That's the back end of a home-to-home. And then Duke on November 17th. Duke was a 6th seed in the tournament last season. That's the national TV game on CBS Sports Network that was announced just a couple of days ago. Duke, a big opponent to get into First Bank and Trust Arena. The Jacks will make a return trip there soon. Jacks will also take on 2 more Power 4s out in Hawaii, Georgia Tech and Oregon. Oregon not as good of a program as they have been in years past, like when they had Sabrina Ionescu, but still an opportunity to play a Power 4 program. And the Jacks will be at Texas on December 22nd, one of the best women's basketball programs in the country. Now on to men's basketball. Men's team making it to the tournament last season as a 15 seed as Summit League champions, but Zeke Mayo, William Kyle III depart. Mayo goes to Kansas, who's the preseason number 1 team in the country. Mayo will be a big piece on that team. And you got William Kyle III, who expected to be a starter at UCLA this season, a team under Mick Cronin looking to make a return to the tournament. But this Jackrabbit team, you get some contributors back, including Kaylin Gary. That's the biggest contributor you do get back on this year's team. Bubs Alvarez, Matthew Moores, Nate Barnhart, also guys that played last season, will look to contribute more. Got some solid transfers. Isaac Lindsay from Wisconsin, who has seen minutes with the Badgers in years past, but had a bit of a decreased role last year, just got buried in the depth chart. He transfers to South Dakota State. He'll likely be a starter in the season opener. Then you got Oscar Clough, who was the big addition of the offseason out of Washington State, the Australia native, 6'11", 260 pounds. Washington State had one of their best seasons of all time last season, finishing 2nd in the Pac-12. Clough, a big bench contributor last season, played in 35 games. He did end up starting 23 for Washington State a season ago, averaging 7 points a game on a 54% clip, 4.5 rebounds per game, recording 31 blocks. So Clough will have Summit League Player of the Year potential this season. Antrell Burton Jr., a freshman to watch out for this season, was the biggest recruit that Eric Henderson brought in this class. So some interesting pieces on this Jackrabbit team, and we'll see how well they mesh together. Another tough non-conference schedule for SDSU. It starts out tough against McNeese State, who a season ago made it all the way to the tournament as a 12 seed, won 30 games under Will Wade, who's one of the best coaches in college basketball. That'll be a great way to start the year. First home game is against Long Beach State, another team that made the tournament last year. Then you'll have road games against Nevada, Colorado, and Alabama. So we'll see what the Jackrabbit men's basketball team is made out of right out of the gate. It'll be another interesting season for each basketball program this winter. That's what's coming up in Jackrabbit Athletics. Lots going on as we enter crossover season here in the ensuing weeks. National sports and our hottest takes are up next here on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, KSDJ 90.7. The Jackrabbit Sports Hour continues here on KSDJ 90.7. Brent Bowen with Sydney Shetland, middle blocker, and a redshirt junior out of Sioux Falls. Sydney, let's flash back a couple of years. You enter the portal after a couple of seasons at Louisville. You go through the process. What made you choose South Dakota State?
Mainly just chose it because I kind of saw what Dan was building here. Also because I'm a little bit closer to my family. I'm able to have my grandparents come to the game, which they haven't been able to go make the trek down to Louisville ever. So being able to have those people and my entire family basically at my games was a really, really big deal for me.
And then what are you studying here at SDSU?
Communications.
All right, so you're the last remaining unbeaten team in Division I of volleyball. Just kind of put into perspective what this means to you and the rest of the team.
This means a lot to us. I mean, none of us really came here expecting for this season to be as special as it has. None of us committed here being like, yeah, we're going to be the last unbeaten team in D1 in 2024. That's not the reason any of us came here, but because we're able to experience that, I just think that it's super special and that we're just should be so grateful to be put in this position.
Had 3 home matches at First Bank and Trust Arena so far. Average attendance has been just over 2,000. What has it been like for you and the rest of the team being able to experience playing in front of such great crowds at such a great venue?
We were really excited about it. Our preseason, we didn't really have any home games, so we were playing in front of crowds of maybe 100. So making that jump from a few people to 2,000 people has been really, really cool to see. I mean, the fans clapping during our video that they play before the game and being able to hear them when we score a point has been really, really cool.
This is now year 2 for you playing alongside your cousin Jocelyn. How special has that been for you?
Really cool. I'm really excited to play with her just because we played together a little bit in high school, and then when I went to college, like, well, I'm never going to be able to play with a family member again. And then she committed that spring when I transferred here, so after that, I was just very excited to be even closer to my family.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit here, get to know you a little more. What's your favorite lifetime memory on the volleyball floor?
I'd have to say, actually, the most recent thing is when the lights turned blue on the new court. That was really cool. Okay,
very recent. So, what do you enjoy doing outside of school and volleyball? What are your hobbies?
I enjoy being outside. I love to fish and hunt. I'm very excited for the pheasant opener. I won't be able to go till January, but that's okay. And then I have a hobby of taking care of plants. So I've got a lot of plants.
Biggest role model growing up?
My biggest role model would probably be, I'd have to say my older cousins. Ellie Benson, she played here. She was a really big role model for me. And also my cousin Seth Benson, he played at Iowa for football. So being able to have those role models to kind of show me the way through high school and now through college and help me kind of grow my faith through Christ has been a really cool thing.
What's the top item on your bucket list currently?
Like an anything?
Anything.
Summit League Championship.
There you go. Eyes on the prize. That's Sydney Shetland of the South Dakota State volleyball team. Coming up next on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, Austin is back as we talk some national sports. Back for more of the Jackrabbit Sports Hour here on KSTJ 90.7. With Ellison Sanger, I'm Brent Bowen. Start with NFL. It was a fun week 7. We'll start talking Vikings since that's probably our primary audience here. That's the team that we root for as well. Things have not gone so hot since the bye week. Beat the Jets in London. Thought they looked a little suspect in the second half. Just kind of brushed it off, said hopefully it'll be all right. Go to the bye, come out of the bye. Quick start against the Lions, but the Lions come away with a 31-29 game and what was just a tremendous football game last Sunday at US Bank Stadium.
Yeah, like you said, Brent, hot start for the Vikings in the Lions game. Get a quick 14 points, but then the Lions just start rolling. The defense can't stop them. They score 4 straight touchdowns, and the Lions are starting to drive down the field again. Then Pace Jr. causes a fumble. He didn't cause a fumble. Metellus caused the fumble. Pace Jr. takes it to the house, You're looking like you're going to win this game. But you get the ball back and you can't get a first down when it matters. It was just a heartbreaking loss to see the Vikings lose.
And it's been an issue in years past, just being unable to finish out a drive or a game rather on the offensive end, giving a great offense like the Lions an opportunity to just gain 30 yards to get into field goal range is not an ideal scenario, tough situation for the Vikings defense to be put in. But that loss wasn't so concerning for Minnesota. The Lions are very good, look like the best team in the league right now. And you lose a narrow game on a walk-off field goal at home, you're not so worried about it. You think, we'll meet them again in Week 18, and we're still in a good spot here at 5-1. But then last night happens, and it wasn't all bad for the Vikings, but that loss last night is a lot more frustrating and disappointing than the one was last week against Detroit.
The loss last night hurt a lot, but you're going against a Rams team who gets healthy. They get Puka back, they get Cooper Kupp back, and the Vikings just cannot stop their offense. And it comes down to us needing to do a final drive to try to even tie the game. And the one thing I have to say is how bad the refs were. It's a game-tying drive for the Vikings. They need to score. They're backed up, and there's two refs in the end zone with Sam Darnold, and you miss a face mask that obvious.
Yeah, it was bad.
You can't do that when the game is on the line. That drive, that whole thing, you just see replays and replays about it. You can't review it. You can't do anything except plead your case.
Funny parts to that play. First of all, Justin Jefferson, he throws his helmet in frustration afterwards. I don't think it was frustration with the team. I think it was frustration with just a poor call that was, or a poor miscall that was. Yeah. Justin Jefferson gets flagged for throwing his helmet in frustration on the sideline. You're going to call that, but you're not going to call the obvious face mask in the end zone? I mean, that's a game-ending play. And another funny part, Byron Young puts his hands in his face. Afterwards, he knows he grabbed the face mask. Everybody knew it, but the refs on the field. And then it was funny. He went on social media afterwards and said, No, I put my hands in my face because it was so loud in there I had to cover my ears. Funny response by him. I'll have to give him that. But it's just
It was just so bad to see. You watching it live, you can see his head turn, but just watching the replay, his head just goes straight back. You cannot miss that call.
And the last funny part I'm gonna touch on this is that Trey Blake, the back official, after his comment after the game was that he didn't have a clear angle to make the call, and then everybody on social media provides the exact screenshot of the replay where you can clearly see Trey Blake has a uninterrupted view of the play. You can see Sam Darnold's helmet getting snapped back, and he just flat out misses the call. And the one thing about Trey Blake, the official, is that in the Colts game 2 years ago, where the Vikings came back from down 33-0, obviously that was an absolutely legendary game for Vikings radio announcer Paul Allen, who made numerous comments about Matt Hawk and how bad of a punter he was and how he shouldn't even be in the league. So his beef with the punter, his beef with Stephon Gilmore, who had what he thought was a dirty hit on Justin Jefferson, and how he should have been thrown out of the game, yada, yada, yada. Some of you guys, if you know what I mean, if you've heard it. But Paul Allen made many frustrating remarks to Trey Blake, the official in that game. A specific quote that Paul Allen made was, Trey Blake, our head official of tonight's game, I hope you never come back. Well, Trey Blake did indeed come back 2 years later, not to U.S. Bank Stadium, but to a Vikings game against the Rams at SoFi Stadium. And, yeah, the officiating crew was not good at all. I mean, not just that play. I mean, there was one holding call in the first half where Byron Murphy barely even touches the receiver, and they call a defensive holding, keeps the drive alive for the Rams, and they go and score. I mean, come on. I mean, part of it is a lot of undisciplined flags for the Vikings defensively. 5 defensive penalties on third downs can't happen. Can't happen. Were one or two of them ticky-tack? Yes. But, I mean, you've got to stay disciplined on these third down opportunities. And that's really seemed like a problem for this Vikings team over the last couple of weeks. And now all of a sudden, after that Vikings loss, you're 5-2. You're only a half game out of last place in the division. If the Bears beat the Commanders on Sunday and the Packers beat, I believe, no, it's not the Titans. The Packers play a team they should beat. And if the Packers take care of business and the Bears take care of business, the Vikings would be tied for last place in the division after having the best record in the league all in 2 weeks.
I just want to say the Packers do play the Jaguars this
The
week.
Jaguars, yeah, okay, yeah. So another AFC South team they should beat. But, I mean, it's just crazy how things have turned. I still think the Vikings are a playoff team this season. I mean, the Rams are a good football team. Like they
healthy, yes.
When healthy, and they got healthy against the Vikings. That offense had everybody there. They're missing a couple of offensive linemen, but I mean, the Vikings offense really did not capitalize enough of that Rams defense, which really is league average at best. I don't even think they're that. But the second half, the offense just really missed out on opportunities.
And the Vikings did lose Darisaw.
They did. Yes, good point.
That's
a brutal injury for the Vikings if that's long term, which it didn't look good live. And yeah, if Darisaw is out for an extended period of time, he's one of the best left tackles in the game. I thought David Questenberry did all right filling in, but will he do that good filling in long term? I don't know. So it's certainly going to be something to look out for here in the upcoming weeks. Let's move on, talk a little more NFL. Chiefs made a splash, trading for DeAndre Hopkins from the Tennessee Titans, making that offense much more explosive. Still the only unbeaten team in the NFL. Went on the road and beat the 49ers last week to improve to 6-0. Who's going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs?
It's a good question because Mahomes hasn't been playing his best ball this season. But they're somehow winning these games and remaining unbeaten. I don't know who they play this week. But, there has to be a way to stop this team, stop their defense, slow down Mahomes even more, because he had a good game against the 49ers last week.
FY, the Chiefs will play the Raiders on the road Sunday afternoon. They have the Raiders, the Buccaneers, the Bucs, though, without Chris Godwin. Mike Evans got hurt as well. He'll be without Godwin for the year. Likely won't see Evans for a couple of weeks. Doubtful the Buccaneers come to Arrowhead and win on Monday Night Football. Then you get the Broncos at home, who've looked all right, but, I mean, the Broncos at home. The Chiefs have owned the Broncos. Chiefs should win there. Really, the only games for the next few weeks, you got the Bills, you got at the Bills, and then versus the Texans. At the Steelers as well. Other than that, I mean, this could be looking at another special season for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and them getting a new wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins with losing Rashid Rice.
I mean, Rice is done for the season. Hollywood Brown as well. I think those are really the only two big losses they've had at receiver. Still have Kelsey around. Worthy's a stud.
Pacheco's still hurt.
Pacheco's hurt. He's going to come back eventually. But Kareem Hunt's been doing all right in his absence. So it's just they lean on their defense, which is top in the league under Steve Spagnuolo. The Vikings got to hope Brian Flores is the next Steve Spagnuolo. Just stays as a coordinator, but feels like Flores won't be getting a head coaching job throughout the next couple of years. We'll see, though, as the season comes to an end.
Well, you mentioned how they got Hopkins this week, but they did try to get Cooper Kupp. That was confirmed.
Thank goodness the Rams.
They just weren't able to get him. How would that offense have looked if they were to get Cooper Kupp?
It's a good question, my friend. I don't know.
It'd be scary. It'd be very scary.
If these guys three-peat, they're going to be competing with the Patriots dynasty here quickly.
Yep.
Let's move on. Talk a little NBA. Season's here. Everybody's played a game now. 3 days into the season, opening night, Celtics started the season with a bang. Finished 1-3 short of the record in a win over the Knicks, and then T-Wolves falling to the Lakers. I think that was more of how poor the T-Wolves played versus how good the Lakers played. The The Wolves, though, a big bounce back win last night
Yep.
over Sacramento. Anthony Edwards and company coming through in crunch time for the win to improve to 1-1.
Yep.
Mavericks beat the Spurs. Nuggets lost to the Thunder in other games.
With the Mavericks, Clay looked good. He had
Yeah, he did.
22 points. He set the record for most threes in a debut. Their offense is kind of scary if they keep that production up.
And then we'll talk a little Thunder Nuggets here quick because those preseason were expected to be two of the best teams in the West. The Thunder, without Hartenstein, still looked good. Defensively, too, is what impressed me the most about that team, holding the powerful Nuggets offense in check. The Caruso edition showing through. What do you have that face? Acting like the Nuggets aren't a good offense? They've got the best offensive player in the world.
Yeah, that is true. They're starting. They're
Well, yeah.
Their bench is.
Their bench is bad.
Yeah.
Their bench is bad.
Watching that game,
I'll be the first
did
to
not
admit it.
look
Their
good.
bench. You thought on paper coming into the season their bench would be improved from last season with veteran presences and Westbrook and Sarge coming in. Sarge didn't play a lot of minutes. Westbrook didn't play very well at all. But their starting five is one of the best in the league.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
agree
doubting
with that.
that.
Yep.
I mean, Jokic is the best player in the game. Jamal Murray needs to take a leap soon. I wouldn't say he's necessarily gotten worse as a player over the past few years, but it doesn't feel like he's gotten much better. I saw something on social media come out saying that it feels like Jamal Murray has somebody said that Jamal Murray is like not hard to guard. And part of that is he's not improved a ton as a scorer over the last few seasons. And in the NBA and in professional sports in general, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Yep.
We could be seeing that from Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr. is streaky, but he's an electric scorer when he can get going. Aaron Gordon can do it on both ends of the floor. Christian Brown actually had the best plus-minus of the night for Denver. Had a +6, I believe, last night. He's got to work on that three-point shot. If CB can figure out that three-point shot, he can be a solid role player for the Nuggets. But, man, they just got to figure things out on the bench. But part of it is the Thunder are a great team. They're going to be the favorite to be the 1 seed again. They were my preseason pick to go win the NBA Finals this season. It's their year to go win it all. They've got players on rookie deals. They're going to have to get paid pretty soon. They overpaid for role players for this moment. Their best opportunity to win a title here is in these next couple of seasons. SGA the favorite to win MVP. So that's a little NBA. MLB, Dodgers with the Yankees in a powerhouse of a matchup in the World Series. In the MLB the past few seasons, really, there's been a lot of surprise teams making runs to the World Series. We've seen a lot of the top dogs go down, including the Dodgers the last few years. The Dodgers finally making their run to the World Series. They had their backs up against the wall. San Diego had them twice in an elimination game, but the Dodgers fending off elimination both times. They cruise in the NLCS in a 6-game win over the New York Mets. That sets up a great World Series matchup between the Dodgers and the Yankees. Game 1 tonight. Garrett Cole taking the slab for the Dodgers, or for the Yankees rather. Jack Flaherty on the mound for LA. Last week, a couple of big games in college football. Top 5 matchup between Georgia and Texas. Georgia going on the road and completely dominating Texas in this one. The Bulldogs led 23-0 at half. Texas battled back to make it an 8-point game going into the fourth, but Georgia, just too much too late. Georgia really, I still think Georgia's the best team in the SEC. They lost to Alabama, but just a bad quarter and a half for the Bulldogs. They came back in the second half, but it was just kind of too little too late. Alabama, Tennessee, kind of Alabama showing why they're not the best team in the SEC, falling in Knoxville 24-17. Another big win for the Volunteers over the Crimson Tide. So now you look at the SEC, Georgia, Texas, Bama, Tennessee, all of a loss. LSU, the one team in the SEC that doesn't, along with Texas A&M. And each of those teams play next weekend. That'll be a big-time matchup in College Station. Miami wins a shootout over Louisville. That Hurricane defense still doesn't look very good, but that offense is one of the best in the country, led by Heisman favorite Cam Ward. Iowa State, a narrow win over UCF, keeping their undefeated season alive. And really, look back at Iowa State. They're 7-0, 4-0 in the Big 12. They shouldn't have got past Iowa in week 2. Hawkeyes led 13-0, and the offense just went completely stagnant in the second half, allowing the Cyclones to come back and win. Iowa State, top 10 in the country, still unbeaten. Indiana, a statement win over Nebraska, 56-7 over the Huskers, and the Hoosiers will host College Game Day this weekend for the first time ever. Coach Corso will get a chance to return to Indiana, a very special place to him. It'll be a great moment for Corso as his years on College Game Day and on ESPN definitely coming down to an end. That's this past week in college football, and lots going on in the national sports world this month as we head towards the end of October. November, another great sports month on the calendar, is nearby. Talk a little more national sports, preview some upcoming games this week, and wrap things up here on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, episode number 4, KSDJ 90.7. Back one final time on Jackrabbit Sports Hour, episode number 4 here on KSDJ 90.7. Some games to watch this week in the NFL, Austin.
One of the biggest games this week, in my opinion, is the Bears versus Commanders. Both very good teams this year, and it's a rookie versus rookie matchup. You have Caleb Williams versus Jane Daniels. Both have a good opportunity to be Rookie of the Year this year. So I feel like this game will be a very good game to watch. Then we got Cowboys versus 49ers. Both teams haven't been playing their best this year. They both want this win. So I feel like this game is going to be a very action-packed game this week. Then we got Dolphins versus Cardinals. Brent, thoughts on this game?
Well, you're going to get Tua Tagovailoa back from injury, so that'll help the Dolphins' offense, which has been one of the worst in the league. And Cardinals, after a come-from-behind win over the Chargers last week, looking to improve to 500 in a NFC West that's pretty wide open and not great this season. Dolphins still time to recover their season at 2-5. Getting Tua back is going to help, but we'll see if they just dug themselves in too deep of a hole. Also got LSU A&M on the college football side this week. That's the game of the week in college football. Top 15 matchup. Each team undefeated in the SEC. Each team fell to start the season. And just a big one in the SEC here in week 9 already of the college football season. Another exciting week, and we will recap it all for you next week on Jackrabbit Sports Hour, episode number 5. It's all for episode number 4 of the Jackrabbit Sports Hour. Austin Sanger, Brent Bowen saying so long. We'll be back next week for episode number 5 here on KSTJ 90.7.